Hello world, welcome back to Razor RC. I wanted to shoot an update to one of my most popular videos, which is what RC radio transmitters I recommend for any budget. So I put out a video about a year ago with the 4 radios I recommend depending on how much you want to spend. And some things have sort of changed in the market. Some radios have gone away, some new ones have showed up. So I thought I'd do an update video explaining what RC radios I recommend in each class. So if you've been following my channel, I do a lot of RC radio reviews. I think I've got something like 20 different videos just on RC radios. By far the most reviews of anybody on YouTube that does RC stuff. So I have a lot of experience with a lot of different radios, have owned almost everything on the market or used everything on the market up through about the $300, $400 range. So I feel like I'm a pretty good source for RC radio information. So I thought I'd talk about the 4 classes that I would recommend. So on the left, we're going to talk about RTR radios. Maybe you've got an RC car, you don't like the RTR radio, or the radio broke, or you lost it or whatever, you just want something a little bit better. I'm going to talk about what I recommend for that. Second up is going to be the under $100 class. So maybe you're ready to step up to a little bit better radio. Maybe you want to control multiple RC cars, have a little AVC type stability control. So I'm going to go over what radio I recommend for that. Third up is going to be what's called the entry level class. So maybe you want to do some club racing. You just want a higher quality radio, a little bit more features. I'll talk about what radio I recommend for that. That's kind of in the $100 to $200 range. And the last one is the best sort of mid-range or race radio I recommend. Once you're just getting a little more serious, you want a little bit more better response times, a little bit better quality, build, that kind of thing. And I'll talk about what radio I recommend for that. And then there is a 5th class. Here's what I would call the high-end class. So stuff in the sort of $500 range. I don't own any $500 radios because that just seems like a lot of money to spend on an RC radio that you can break. And I think by then you probably already kind of know what you want among the big 3 radios, which are, the big 3 brands are basically Spectrum, Sanwa, and Futaba here in the United States. I think that pretty much makes about 95% of the high-end market. So yeah, without any further ado, let's get into the review. So first up, we're going to talk about what I recommend as the best RTR radio on the market today. And this is a radio that got sent to me by Banggood a few weeks ago, and actually I was super impressed by the quality and performance of this radio. So this is the Dumbo RC X6. This came out earlier this year, sells for about $30 at the time of this video, and is quite impressive for a $30 radio. So if you're looking to upgrade from your STX2 or DX2E, or maybe the TQI that comes with your Traxxas, this is what I would recommend, and I'll just kind of talk about it real quick. So just a really high quality radio. The plastics, the fit and feel, even the trigger and steering wheel actually feel really good in the hands. The range on this is really, really high. It actually has 6 different channels. So in addition to steering and throttle, you've got a push button here for channel 3. You've got a 3-position switch up here for channel 4. And then channels 5 and 6, you actually have knobs on top. You got a little blue LED to tell you that it's on. And then it actually has all your little adjustments here underneath this cover. So you've got channels 1 and 2, trim control, and dual rate control. So all your basic controls. I like that it's actually covered. I like the integrated antenna. It takes 4 AA's as per normal. And then there's even a little plug for a JST connector in case you want to hook up a little LiPo battery or something like that. It also actually has stability control, or active vehicle control, whatever you want to call it. So you can actually have a little bit of a gyro effect in your RC car to actually do a little bit more straight line management in case you want something a little bit easier to drive. So super high quality radio. It's actually based off the RadioLink technology, so the electronics are actually pretty good in this thing. And in addition to that, just the finish feel of the radio is actually excellent. Far better than pretty much any RTR radio out there. Now, my previous winner in this class was the Tactic TTX 300. You can still buy that, but it no longer comes in RC cars. Pretty much just sell it by itself, and it's about $70, quite expensive. Really, the only downside I don't like to this radio is that there's no foam on the steering wheel, so it's just kind of this hard plastic, not quite as comfortable in your hand. And the last thing is no endpoint adjustment, so it just has dual rate for your steering. So if you actually want to limit your steering travel, because pretty much for every RC car you want to adjust how far the wheels turn left and right, because you don't want to overextend what the wheels can actually turn. That will damage your servo. So having dual rate or endpoint adjustment is critical. This has dual rate, which only adjusts both of them at the same time. If you have endpoint adjustment, you can actually adjust them independently, and that way even if your steering is not exactly the same left and right, you'll get maximum throw. So I wish I had endpoint adjustment, but really realistically pretty much most RTR radios don't have it. So for $30 I think this is a slam dunk purchase, and definitely something to look into if you want to upgrade your RTR radio. Next up is a sub $100 radio class, and my pick is actually the FlySky FS-GT5. This is a radio that's been out for a little over a year, but has super impressed me with how good of a radio this actually is. In general, I have not been a fan of FlySky radios. The FS-GT3, B, and C I think are really quite poor radios. I know they're really popular because they're cheap, but realistically they are just not very well built, sort of buggy radios, not very reliable. Things break on them, so I don't recommend those in general. So I was a little bit leery when I first got this radio. FlySky hasn't had a good track record, but I'm actually incredibly impressed by how good the FS-GT5 is. So what you get here, as opposed to something like an RTR radio, you obviously got a nice backlit display, a lot more adjustments. We'll kind of explain it real quick. Model, name, channel reversing. So endpoint adjustment, as I mentioned, I really like that. Sub-trim adjustments. So in addition to just trim, you can actually get down smaller increments and actually get sub-trim. Dual rate, is pretty standard to adjust your steering and throttle. Exponential function, so you can actually adjust the curves of the throttle or curves of the steering. So if you want it a little less sensitive, immediately off of neutral, maybe that first little turn, you want it to be kind of a little less sensitive, and then kind of ramp up, you can do that. It's got anti-lock brakes. Trim control, of course, fail safe. Actually, some crawl mode, so some mixing. So you can get some sort of two-channel, four-wheel steering type control. And finally, SVC, which is the stability control by FlySky. That actually works quite well on this radio. Obviously, you have a voltage display, and actually controls 20 different channels. So quite an impressive radio overall. Build quality is super high. Got this nice rubberized texture. I'm really big on the feel of the radio. It's got nice foam steering wheel. Throttle feels really good. Controls are a little bit on the light side, non-adjustable, but still pretty good overall. You have a foldable antenna, so if you want a little more range, you can pull that up. If you don't want to get in the way, you can fold it down. Pretty nice. 5 channels, so obviously in addition to steering and throttle, you actually have a push button for channel 3. You've got a 3-position switch for channel 4, and then two knobs up top for channels 5 and 6. This is a 6-channel radio. I don't know why they call it FS-GT5 if it's a 6-channel radio. But anyways, on the bottom, you've got 2 AA. Also has a JST connector if you want to plug in a LiPo or life battery or something like that. So yeah, overall, I'm quite impressed with this radio. Just incredible value. I think this sells for about $70 at the time of this video, and excellent choice overall. So yeah, that's my pick in the sub $100 radio class. Okay, moving on to the entry-level class, and this class has sort of ballooned in price over the last couple of years. What used to be around a $100 radio has now moved more towards the $130, $140, $150 range. So the radios really have not improved that much, but the prices actually have. So my pick is actually the Spectrum DX5C. This radio has been out for a couple of years now. They actually are getting ready to update this, so they're going to come out with the DX5C Smart, I think is what it's called, but they've also raised the price on this. So it's pretty much the same radio, but they added some of their new smart technology that's coming on some of their Spectrum stuff. So competitors to the DX5C include the Sanwa MX6 and the Futaba 3PV. I've also owned both of those radios. Pretty good radios overall, but they just don't compare to the Spectrum DX5C in terms of features, in terms of quality, in terms of the display. This thing just kills those other guys hands down, and it's not even close. So what you get with something like this as opposed to something like the FlySky is a little bit better response time, a little bit better frame rate, a little more suitable to club racing, but you still got a lot of channels, 5 channels, so you can use this for bashing, crawling, lights, winches, that kind of thing. So really a general purpose radio when you want something a little bit higher quality. So other things you have are like removable grips, you have adjustable steering tension, and then you got a nice dot matrix type display, which really is a lot better than that sort of fixed display on the cheaper radios. You can actually see the adjustments as you're turning the wheels, pulling the trigger. You can kind of see what the radio is actually doing without even having your radio on. Oops. In addition to that, you have this full menu system with the full dot matrix text. So you have all your general stuff that you get with the FlySky, the multiple models, model names, travels, what they call endpoint adjustment, sub trim as normal, channel reversing as normal. Speed is actually something you don't get with the lower end radios. So speed, you can actually slow down the response of these channels. So maybe your steering is a little too twitchy, or throttle is a little too twitchy, or maybe your server is actually too fast and you want to slow it down a little bit. So you can use speed to adjust that. Dual rates are the dual rates. Expo, like I mentioned, is sort of throttle curves and steering curves. Actually, you get a little bit of timer, so you can actually start the timer, countdown or stopwatch or whatever. If you're doing lap times, that's sort of a manual thing, so not super useful, but something the cheaper radios don't have. Adjustable frame rate, so if you've got older receivers, you can actually adjust the frame rate to use those. This gets down to about 11 milliseconds, which is pretty good, not super high-end race level, but good enough for club racing. You got mixing of channels. Spectrum's version of stability control, which they call ABC. So a lot of adjustments on the ABC. I have this turned off, but you can actually see you can adjust gain on the steering and throttle side, and also priority. So it's got 2 channels of stability control to basically help your RC car stay in a straight line. Trim setup, and then the cool thing is the auxiliary adjustment. So you can actually adjust what each of the auxiliaries actually do. So you can decide this should be A, B, how much you want it to adjust, all the different actual channels. I guess they call them A through F for whatever reason, but anyways, it's got programmable buttons. Just a really nice radio overall. I think that's about it. Not much in settings really. Different display levels and sounds and stuff. But yeah, just a super nice radio. Sells for about $130 to $150. We'll see what it comes out with the new smart version, but just a really nice radio overall. Probably the radio I use the most for bashing or crawling, just because it's durable and high quality and not super expensive, and still has a display and all the adjustments I want. So that's my pick in the entry-level class. Okay, time to talk about the mid-range class, and we're talking radios in the $200 to $300 range. So maybe you're ready to step up to a little bit better performance. You want to take your racing to the next level. Just want a faster radio overall. This is the kind of the class that you want to look at. So there are pretty much 3 main competitors that make up the market here in the US. It's basically Sanwa, Futaba, and Spectrum. And if you look at the people that, sort of the privateers or the guys that are racing on their own that don't have sponsorships, I think Sanwa is pretty much the most popular choice. And the reason for that is the performance on these is extremely, extremely high. I actually think it's probably the highest performing radios on the market, especially at this price point. This is a Sanwa MTS in my pick for the mid-range class. This radio sells for about $200, and you get a ridiculous amount of performance in this for a $200 radio. So this is a 4-channel radio, not really meant so much for bashing or crawling or whatever. But if you want just extreme performance, super high frame rates, just really good feel on the steering wheel, trigger, adjustable tensions, I think this is a really good choice. You also get sort of this nice backlit display. You can see your throttle and steering changes in real time. It actually has telemetry as well, so you can have voltage and RPM control, or not control, but feedback if you have those hooked up on your RC radio. And then all your normal adjustments, of course. For steering, just a lot of adjustments, dual rate, speed, curve, fail safe, your sub trims and trims endpoints, and then yeah, your trims, of course. So yeah, just a 4-channel radio, but extremely high performing. This is really close in performance to their high-end radios. This used to be as fast as their M12 and their MT4S. I think the MT44s and M12, what is it, the RS now, or M17? I can't remember what the highest end radio is now, but you know, those are probably a little bit faster now. But yeah, just a lot of adjustments. You can adjust the step on each additional button, a lot of different models, timer, telemetry. So most of the things that you want to get in a high-end radio, but at a really affordable price. So for $200, I think this is the best radio you can get, sort of in that mid-range class. Of course, you can put in a LiPo life battery like I have here. You can use 4 AA's. So yeah, just a really good radio overall. Fits and feels really good in the hand. I wish it had a little bit adjustable grips. You'll have to step up to the MT44 if you want more adjustments there in the actual controls. But for this type of price range, for this type of performance, I don't think this radio can be beat. So that is my pick in the mid-range class, the Sanwa MTS. So yeah, anyways, that's my review of all the different radios I recommend in each class. Hope you enjoyed it. Please like, share, subscribe, hit the notifications button, and look for more videos soon. Thanks for watching.